Hey there, gang. I am going to go on a rant today. This is one of my, I would say, top of the list rants. And I'm going to be talking about nothing other than climate change. I've got a position that I'm pretty sure is the same as Elon's or darn close. But I really want to just lay it out. I want to make it clear. I'd love to have your comments. I'd love to hear how you agree or disagree with this, because I absolutely can't figure out why this isn't a great middle ground where the left and the right can come together. We can all agree and just get the job done. So this is Randy Kirk. If this content is of any value at all to you or just entertaining and amusing, please like, subscribe, become part of my Patreon channel, etc., etc. All right, let's start off with why am I even bothering with this? Why do I think I have any reason or ability to speak on this issue? So here's a little bit of background. Number one, I've been interested in climate change my entire adult life. My career was in the bicycle industry, basically from age 23 until today. That entire time, I have been selling products, manufacturing products in the bicycle industry. And in fact, the number one product that I made was bicycle style water bottles, each one of which eliminated hundreds, if not thousands, of non-reusable bottles. So bicycle water bottles are reusable. Use them over and over again instead of buying those crinkly ones from the store and just throwing them away or possibly littering with those all over the world. So we made about 5.5 million bottles a year for 20 years. And so you can imagine how many of those little crinkly bottles that we eliminated by making all those bottles. So I think I have a historic basis for saying that I care about the environment, care about things like plastic and recycling and all the rest. In fact, our plastic products were made with microbes. Once we became aware of them, we made them with the microbes that speed up the disintegration of the plastic in landfill. I could go on and on about that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, I've been reading about and studying about and writing about the issue since the early 90s. The whole global warming or global change, climate change. I've been studying both sides of the issue. I never study just one side. I want to see what the folks on the other side have to say about it. So I've been studying both sides of this issue since the early 90s. I have read, I can't tell you, countless tens of thousands of hours that I've spent on this. And I'm the only person I know that has actually read the IPCC. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The UN puts out several times, they put out several different reports every few years that is based on hundreds of scientists coming together and saying, this is what we think the base case is, worst case, best case, etc. And it's a very, very complex report. Most people, well, I would say less than 1 in 10,000 people on the planet have read the IPCC. But what have you read? What do you think your neighbor has read? What do you think the environmental activists have read? What do you think the people who don't believe in global warming have read? Oh, they've read the reporters' reports about what's in the IPCC. And the reporters haven't read it either. They're reading some other reporter's report of what's in the IPCC. In other words, basically nobody reads it. And what people do is they get their information from other people who might have read it, might not have read it. But the reality is I'm one of the few that's read it. And what does the IPCC report say? The very latest one? It says that if things go badly wrong, like increase the temperature, global temperature increase based on their models and whatever, go over 2 degrees, maybe go to 3 degrees, we will have these horrible results. We will have increased migration. The greatest migration probably in the history of the earth is taking place right now from the north of the United States to the south of the United States so people can get warmer. This migration that they're talking about would be migrating away from beaches and migrating away from maybe some hotter locations on Earth to some cooler locations. So far, that doesn't seem to be how people move. They tend to be moving from colder to warmer. However, the IPCC feels that there will be increased migration. If things get really bad, they say there's going to have to be a lot of mitigation. So that means we're going to have to find ways to be cooler in the winter and warmer in the summer in order to deal with, what did I just say? Warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer because of climate variations that might be more extreme than they are now. Now, these are in extreme cases. Primarily, they're worried about the warmer situation hurting people. What are the ways that the people are going to be hurt? Well, let's go to number 3 then on my, number 3 on my list here, is that the way people are going to be hurt is going to be from possible droughts, possible food shortages. But even the IPCC says that this is going to be a case where maybe the world's GDP will drop by 4% compared to where it could have been otherwise. That's the actual statement in the IPCC. Don't take my word for it, please. It's free online. Go get it, read it for yourself, and make your own conclusions. Okay, so we're not talking about drastic situations where weather systems are going to get worse. That's already been proven not to be true, or they can't prove it is true, that there's more tornadoes or more hurricanes or more drought or more fires or any of that. The IPCC says we cannot tell you that any of that is taking place at this time. They talk about sea level change. Sea level change has been happening since before there was an industrial revolution. But from what they can tell right now, sea level change has continued at about the same rate that it has for the last 120 years. So we do have potential problems downstream, but they're not going to be existential. It doesn't mean that human beings are going to be wiped out. In fact, the main thing that kills human beings in terms of weather is cold weather. Okay, so, and that's provable. All right, now let's talk about what hurts people in terms of air pollution. A huge number of the poor folks in the world use either dung, which they burn in their homes or outside their homes, wood, which is also charcoal, call them the same thing. They use wood or charcoal in their homes in order to heat their homes or to make their food. And then coal. Those are the 3 primary ways that the poor countries of the world currently heat and manage their lives. When they get more wealthy, 2 things happen. Number 1, they want cheaper and more convenient ways to heat and manage their lives with energy. And that means natural gas and oil products. So as these countries get more wealthy, they need more oil and natural gas. And what is that? It's less polluting than wood or charcoal, dung, and coal. Those are the most polluting, and that's what the poor folks use. As they get wealthier, they want petroleum-based products, which are less polluting, more convenient, and cheaper for them, which helps them to become even more wealthy. The wealthier these individuals get, the more interested they are in not polluting their environment. And you can imagine that the 3 worst cases, the coal and the dung and charcoal, those 3 things pollute their homes the worst and create the most actual potential for respiratory disease, etc. The petroleum products are better on those subject matters. So if we care about folks that are moving up in the world and becoming wealthier and wealthier, what we should be looking for is ways to get them off of those 3 highly pollutant and very expensive and very inconvenient methods of heating, cooking food, etc., and moving them up to petroleum, but hopefully getting them to skip petroleum and go all the way, of course, to solar, wind, and battery storage. All right. Number 5, and that was number 5, that the wealthier people get, the more they care about their environment. Okay, number 6. The world already is rapidly changing to wind, solar, and battery. And there's a good reason for this. It has nothing to do with the government saying you have to. It has everything to do with the fact that it's cheaper. And so if individuals make wise decisions right now around the world, the wise decision is to move as rapidly as possible to wind, solar, and battery. The thing that keeps countries from going in this direction is the availability of all 3. So There's currently actually a glut of solar capability in the world, but this glut of solar can't be fully utilized because there's not enough batteries to back it up. So this is all coming into place. Elon Musk just had his investor day where he talked about what it's going to take in order to get the world to change to sustainable, to wind, solar, and battery. And it's happening. It's going to take some time, probably going to take 20 to 30 years for the complete transition, but it is going to happen, and it's happening rapidly. And it's a benefit to every human on Earth because it makes it cheaper for everybody to get the energy they need to live in a wealthy environment, a wealthy and non-polluting environment, a place that's better for your respiratory system and all the rest of your systems. All right, so that's number 6, the rapid change. By the way, the conservatives in America and around the world, but especially in America, the conservatives do not believe that electricity created by solar and wind combined with battery is the cheapest way to go. They continue to shout from the rooftops that this is costing people more money and it's hurting people's budgets, and the middle class and the rest of us just can't buy it as inexpensively as if it was petroleum. This is nonsense. I'm a conservative. I'm going to say it right out loud. I'm a conservative. I'm telling you, conservatives, all of you, pick up your newspapers or pick up some books or talk to some people that know what they're talking about. Have the utilities show you there is absolutely no debate left anymore. Solar, wind, and battery is by far the cheapest way to create and to generate electricity. It is cheaper on several different levels. That's number 8 on my list. It is cheaper to install by far. It's not even close. It is cheaper, is faster to install than any other energy approach by far. Commonly, installations of very large utility-sized projects can happen in less than a year or a year and a half, whereas any other system that you're talking about takes multiplied years in order to install them and get them up and running. And of course, multiplied amounts of Capex, way over, I don't care, even hydro is way more Capex. Nuclear, way more Capex. Oil, way more Capex. Gas, peaker plants and gas production of electricity, it doesn't matter. Pick the system. The Capex is lower on solar and wind combined with battery, and the overall time to put it in is significantly less. And then the running rate is the point I was making earlier. The run rate is now so much less expensive than any other system that you can get over the entire period of the installation. It is far less expensive per kilowatt hour produced, per kilowatt of energy produced, I'm sorry. So it's much better, obviously for the environment, much better in terms of being something that is going to be, you don't have to replace it. You don't have to worry about running out of oil. This is a sustainable. Wind and sun, obviously both sustainable. There's other stuff coming along like wave and whatnot, but I suspect that wind and solar are going to be the majors. All right, number 9. The methods of dealing with carbon pollutants from concrete and steel are currently moving ahead. These are the other 2 big ones. After you talk about the energy to heat your home, to cook your food, to run plants, to turn on the lights, and all the other things that are necessary for us to live, the number 1 uses of fossil fuels would be for transportation and for these energy things that I just mentioned. But on top of that, we've got some other pollutants that are coming out of concrete and steel manufacturing. These are really big. You've got some agricultural issues as well. I'm not going to talk about those today. We'll just stick to these, but on concrete and steel, both of those, the science is coming along quite nicely, and things are scaling up right now with regard to methods for reducing the amount of CO2 pollutants from both of those. And then number 10, the world will need petroleum products now for at least a couple more decades. In fact, we will probably need more petroleum products for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. We may or may not have reached peak petroleum. It's very, very close. Tony Seba, Kathy Wood, some of them think that we might have reached peak petroleum. But even if we've reached peak petroleum, you still need to drill for more because some of those petroleum reserves run out. Some of them become ineffective. So it's always good to continue to find more oil and more gas reserves, more gas places where we can drill and maintain and generate this energy resource, because at least for another couple of 3 years and maybe 5 years, we're going to need more than we're using now, even as we ramp up the use of solar, wind, and battery. And the reason for that is countries are becoming wealthier. India is becoming wealthier. Pakistan is becoming wealthier. Indonesia is becoming wealthier. Africa, South America, just go down the list, China, are all becoming wealthier. As they become wealthier, they need more energy. And should we be depriving these folks of the opportunity to move into a wealthier situation? That would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. To the extent they can jump over, that they can skip petroleum and move directly from coal to solar and wind, fantastic. And I hope that happens as rapidly as possible. But in the meantime, we cannot stop generating as much gas and oil as possible in the short term. The system, the capitalistic system that the world really runs on at the end of the day, the method of deciding things based on supply, demand, and what people are willing to pay will eliminate petroleum products over the next 10 to 20 years, because people will make smart decisions. They will make the smart decision to use the to use solar and wind as opposed to oil, coal, and natural gas as their costs go down and it becomes available. Very simple idea. Don't know why this simple idea can't get across to folks. The idea that the grid can't handle all the electric cars that are coming, the idea that the grid can't handle all these solar installations, and there's the issues with not having solar at night, not being able to use solar in cold climates. All of these have already been debunked, primarily by Tony Seba, who has actually done the science and shown, and in fact, don't even take Tony Seba's word for it. Utilities right now are putting solar and wind utilities into Northern Europe as we speak, into Canada as we speak, places where it is cold and they don't have that much sunlight. So these installations are going in now for only one reason. They're going in because they cost less. They cost less in Capex, and they cost less for the run rate. Okay. So we will get to zero fossil fuels at some point. It might be 2030, it might be 2040. It's more likely to be 2040 than 2030. I would say that's probably a realistic idea. It'd be 2040 that probably we will only be using fossil products to do plastics and other things that are appropriate for those petroleum resources. We will no longer be using them as fuel. Why can't we figure this out as a world so we don't have to be throwing paint onto fantastic, amazing art as a way to demonstrate that we care about the environment? The way we can show that we care about the environment is to get behind companies like Tesla, get behind some of these utilities that are rapidly switching over to wind and solar, get behind the governments who are making the switch to wind and solar and batteries. This is the future. This is the way we can solve the problem. And it will not only solve the problem in terms of CO2 emissions, it will not only solve the problem in terms of taking people away from pollutants that are hurting their lungs, it will also make the entire world wealthier. We will have more abundance. Everybody will benefit. Anyway, that's my rant. If you like this comment, I'd love to hear where I got it wrong, or tell me that I got it right, at least one or two of those points. And then like and subscribe and join Patreon. Hey, you know what? As usual, it was great talking to you.